Although worry, I'll let you know when to get that next one. So you clicking? So sorry for the delay. Please bear with us.
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. All right. So I don't want to make this too lengthy, too talkative. I know you guys have been here since the morning. I know everyone has talked about the origins of Pan-Africanism. I know we've all got my history lesson. We all know where we are. We're all here in this room today because we either A, know about Pan-Africanism already, B, are excited to hear what other people think about Pan-Africanism, or C, ready to learn about it. I'm sure you've already done C since the morning. So I'm just going to go over these couple things here because my focus is kind of more on within the digital age and connection, specifically in two types of connection. So you cannot have the internet or you cannot have technology without the physical and the software. So you need hardware, you need software. Okay? Hardware, software. Alright, so who am I? I found out that we're going to be recording this. I want you guys for the record to know that I am a baddie and I am a side quest queen. For those of you who don't know what a side quest is, it's a person who does a lot of hobbies or a lot of activities. Okay? I am from St. Vincent and Grenadines. I'm currently based in Taiwan. I am a person who is racialized as being mixed race in the Caribbean. I don't think we need to get into the specifics, but you know, I'm just giving that as context from my perspective as to how I experience the world. I am primarily a tech and art engineer, with my focus is on the idea of play as a feature design, not a byproduct. In terms of my other organizational roles, I created Black Creators Taiwan. I was one of the organizers for our Curticate, which is primarily a meeting space for women in the African diaspora to have meetups, to have community, as well as to have book clubs and meetings. If you want to join, please come by me after. Next one we also did Community Events Taiwan. This is myself and some other friends. And we were like, we need free events that are also child friendly. So that's what that event is. The next one, I was one of the organizers for Black Queer Pride Taiwan. I think it's self-sufficient. There are queer people who are also Black, and they also need a safe space to hang out. Yes. Alright, so what does Pan-Africanism look like now? Money talks, baby, right? So the first thing we have are the different economic trade blocks. We have the one that is in the African Union. We also have one that is the Caribbean, and we also have in Latin America and abroad, right? Not to mention the people who are in the diaspora who send the remittances back home. A lot of countries have a lot of income coming in from the remittances. So recently, countries like Ghana, I believe, did have visa-free access or ability to go and travel there. So borders, passports, we've all filled out the visa forms. The less forms, the better, in my personal opinion, right? And then part 3, which is obviously something I care about, which would be online book clubs. You gotta read. We gotta read to know more about other people and other places. And a lot of things that have been happening recently is that many people have started these online book clubs where they're recommending different books from different authors from different countries. Women, LGBTQ, or maybe more academic reading. And then another one have educational content. This can become like Instagram short reel creators who are making content who are there for, like, say, hey, did you know that in 1956 this happened? Or it can be people who I follow, this other content creator who talks about different examples of folklore within the African heritage. And I was like, whoa, that's so cool. I never knew about any of these things, right? Now, remember that I said hardware, software. Now this is the original hardware setup. Like back in the day, I believe it is 1866. So you can see on the map here that this first cable that's connecting here is actually between the US and England, right? What about 1870? We see one here that is actually passing, a little bit over Africa, but primarily through India. So this is maintaining a colonial route. I'm sure that you guys already know about it. I don't need to explain it. Now, 2026 is where we are now. Ooh, everybody's online, right? Now, you can see this one is primarily the underwater sea cables. So the hardware for the internet is a couple different things. It's one, underwater here. It can be two, the broadband signal towers, and it can also be satellites. Think SpaceX. Think, I think it's Telnet, who has one in Africa, Vodafone. All of these here are connecting people to the internet. Now, we all see the cables, we all see the lights lit up. We know that in the US, communities that are primarily done by people of color who are African American may not have the best connectivity to the internet, even though the US itself maintains a really high access point. In Africa here as well, we know that countries like South Africa have the highest amount of internet access because it is primarily one of the biggest tourist destinations. The same thing for the Caribbean as well. Alright, so who online though? I know that this is a formal speech, but I believe that Creole, as in English Creole, French Creole, Dutch Creole, I believe that we can all function in the same academic space, and it is part of breaking down the barriers of learning as people. If we look here, who is online? In the world, 2020, and then we all had COVID-19, and everybody was online. Who wasn't online before had to be online then. Okay? And so from 2020 to 2023, you see a big jump overall worldwide in people who are online. But that jump is actually not that big when you look at different parts of Africa. So you see that Africa itself, the different countries in different parts of Africa, isn't as online as everyone else. Alright, so here, North America, Europe, Central America, etc. I think this is pretty interesting diagram because when we think about the internet, or when I think about the internet, because I'm here in Taiwan, I think I'm a chronically online person, right? I'm always online. My phone is always in my hand. I'm always looking at stuff. And I'm thinking like, wow, I can see stuff from everywhere. Everybody must also be on there. But then you can look at the data, everybody's not on there. Everybody's not there. So we have the amount of internet penetration here for the different parts of the world. We see the lowest ones here for Africa. And also another interesting point is that there is a gender disparity in terms of who is online. And so the idea of not just women who are in tech, women who are coding, women who are writing, we have people being able to access the internet. One of the biggest barriers for access to the internet is the cost. If the cost of your phone and your mobile data package is significant, you're not going to choose to get it, right? So lowering that cost is something that other governments have to do. All right, now back to the real stuff. You're thinking about identity, you're thinking about culture. You've all been online. We all were, well, everyone who I think is millennial, Gen Z, Gen Y. We remember Vine, we know TikTok, we know Azonto, we know YouTube, right? So these are all different things that have been trending. So when Vine first took off, everybody knows the phrase, or maybe you don't know the phrase, like eyebrows on fleek, which was an African American creator, and it just popped off everywhere. So you have these different instances of things that are niche Black content going hyper viral on the internet. So you would think that, ooh, we all did this together. Not really. Another aspect of you seeing things online will be the use of hashtags. So this is primarily on social media sites like Twitter. So you have the NSARS movement in Nigeria, we have Congress leading, and we have Black Lives Matter, which went global. And everywhere there was an African diaspora community. We also have, in the Caribbean, I'm sure you guys don't know this one, it's called Life in Leggings. And it was a movement that was there to talk about the experiences that women in the Caribbean feel when they're being sexually harassed or just walking down the street in leggings. Another one, the most recent one I can think of is a streamer called Speed. Now, Speed has done different tours in different parts of the world, right? He did an African tour. And his whole thing is that he's a person who has the ability to travel to these different places, so he takes you along with him. So it's just a long live stream of him going through the different countries, etc. And what this really did was just like blow up these different countries in different spaces. Like even though I myself have followed these countries and I know about it, the way it was organically being introduced on stream really did change the perception of a lot of people's minds of what these countries look like. The same thing as well for the Caribbean. Now, we know that we are online hashtags which were popularized on Twitter, right? Or they were all popularized on the street. I want you to hold the idea in your mind of things being said online as well as things being said in person. We're going to come back to this. Okay, now, we already know that the vast majority of people online are, of course, from the Americas, right? Just statistically speaking. And then we have also the UK, Australia, etc. So now we have three main groups that we're seeing on social media. If you are on social media, you would have heard of something called quote-unquote diaspora wars. Some terrifying, some scary, it's not. Okay? So you have instances where people are saying, oh, we know that we are Black British because we do this thing. Or we know that we are Afro-Caribbean because we do that thing. Or we know that we are African-American because we do this thing. And we know that you're African because you do that thing. But is it actually like a real thing that's happening? Or is it just people online who are just talking? Now, one of the stories I read, if you go to point number 3, is this essay by Malcolm Gladwell called Africa. Malcolm Gladwell talks about the experiences of West Indian diaspora between the US and between Canada. Same group of people, right? Around the same time. So you have the West Indian diaspora in the US who arrive there and they're seen as quote-unquote good blacks, right? You have the same West Indian diaspora in Canada who show up and they're like, ooh, I don't know, we should let you in. They're like, close the border, send them back. And you have this idea of like, well, why is it the same set of essentially Black people are being seen as good in one place but bad in the other? And part of that gets into the idea of the immigrant paradox. Whereas if you are an immigrant group to a place where there's someone who has the same phenotype as you, the people who are local to that place are going to be seen as, you know, the bad ones, but these new ones, they're the good ones. So that's that idea that's happening here. And the idea essentially is that, if I summarize it, and I would also recommend everyone reads this, is that there will always have to be someone who is the bad, or the person who is the negative perception of blackness there. Now, when you're thinking about this, one thing I feel like is when you're talking online or you make points online, I think social media, the way it is set up, people have a hard time realizing that two things can be true at once. People are not really sitting down there trying to find nuance when they're talking, or they're also very much taking things from a very individual experience and saying, well, I didn't experience this, so you must be wrong. And so we can take, for example, here, Tyler. Tyler is from Joburg, South Africa. She is a colored person, right? And so she has described herself and said that she is colored, but she knows that in the US she is perceived, racialized as being black. And many people were like, ooh, you shouldn't use that term. Why are you talking about yourself like that? Like, that's good. What's wrong with you? Why are you having this rejection of your identity? Like, why are you describing yourself in this type of way? And she's not. She's just simply saying that these two things are true at the same time for her, which is something that can be true in many different parts of the world, right? Now, I don't want to bore you guys too much. This is an open conversation. So I was thinking to myself, well, Meta, TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, Reddit, Twitch, Discord, Telegram, etc. All of these are social media sites that people are talking about. But, do we own them? Or are we merely renting digital space? Are these our digital landlords? And when we show up to our digital houses, how do we know we can stay there? So if we cannot organize in these spaces, what are we going to do when they say that you can't use it anymore? Because remember when I asked you guys to hold in your minds NSARS, asked you guys to think about convoys burning, there was a system, or there was an experience that happened where people were saying that there is censorship. And that censorship was happening in terms of the internet being cut off in some countries. Or you have censorship happening in the sense of these certain words were not allowed to be posted on the internet anymore. And then the second, which goes back to the second part, But if the wind is too strong and the rain is too heavy, the electricity is gone, right? Connectivity remains a really big problem. So if we are also not able to fully stay online all the time, and when we are online, our access is a little bit shaky at best, then are we really having freedom of speech on the internet? It's my question. All right, so my main things idea here that I'm thinking about is that technology is political. We know technology is political, all technology is political, all infrastructure is political. You can think about it if you think about the thoroughfares in France, because they were built with that specific size because they didn't want any more fighting on the streets. You can think about why the bridges in New York are so low. And you can think about why is it only the main tourist centers have that high amount of internet access. The hidden environmental cost, I feel like this can just be its own presentation, and I don't want to go too much into it. But you can think then again about where does the waste go? Who is responsible for dealing with the waste? You think about the data centers that are being built up right now. I really don't want to get too much into it because it's such a vast and nuanced topic. But where does that go? Who is training the data, the AI language learning models? Whose vocabulary gets to be integrated into it? Whose is excluded? And then we have this idea as well of romanticization or content farming. When we're consuming content of another group of people, or we're thinking of the idea of a homeland, wherever that homeland may be, is it there because you're posting it because it's like, wow, it's amazing, and you're not really looking at the full reality of it? Or are you just doing it for clicks and views, right? It's another question. All right. Now, so these are some of the things that I had read, and I would encourage you guys to read as well if you want to read more about it. We have algorithmic oppression, the environmental impact of data center and AI. And I'm sure every grad student has read On Disenchanting Discourse, Minority Literary Criticism and Beyond by Sylvia Winter, The Architects of Politics by Langton. And then we have another one, Digital Pan-Africanism and the Crisis of Post-Colonial State, which talks about the social media hashtags in Nigeria and Congo. Okay? Ladies and gentlemen, that's my time. Thank you.